Hey everyone, so you probably heard, but I ended up having to get my appendix out, which is just so crazy. So I thought it would be easier to record what you're going to do the next couple of days instead of trying to have someone else explain it to you. So in Google Classroom, you're going to have this Judicial Branch slide deck, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. You can pause it as you work on it. There's a few different activities that I put in here that you are going to work on to get introduced to the judicial branch. Okay, so we're going to start with what you worked on Monday when I left school, and that was examining Article 3 and annotating. So if you haven't finished that, go ahead and make sure that you do. There are 3 sections to Article 3. So you have Section 1, which is really the courts in terms of office. And you have Section 2, which is jurisdiction. Jurisdiction refers to who can hear the case. And then Section 3 deals with treason. It's pretty interesting that treason is the only defined crime in the Constitution. So we'll talk about why they thought that was important. So if you already completed this in your Google Doc, you can go ahead and put the link from your Google Doc into this slide, or you can go ahead and click this and it'll open up a new Article 3 that you can work on. The next thing that you're going to take a look at today is the difference of the 2 court systems that we have in this country. So we have a national judiciary, which is like the federal courts that span the entire country, and then we have the state courts, and those are run by each of the 50 states. So there's different court systems that are needed in order to allow like each level to interpret their laws. And if you remember when we talked about federalism, this is where that comes back into play, that there's things the federal government has jurisdiction over, and they have to interpret those federal laws, but then there's laws that like the state of Illinois has. And so if you were speeding in Vernon Hills, you wouldn't go to federal court necessarily, you would go to traffic court in Vernon Hills. And so that's kind of what we're looking at first, is the different types of court systems. The Constitution talks only about federal courts, and then it allows states to create whatever courts they feel are necessary. We're going to spend most of the unit talking about just the federal courts, but it's important to kind of know what ends up in state courts as well. So the first thing I want you to do is try to take a look at the 2 types of court system. So you'll have the federal court and the state courts. And I kind of gave a brief overview at the top there of the slides, but federal courts again are created by the Constitution. They deal with issues of law relating to the powers granted in the Constitution. So we even get into amendments. So all of the amendment interpretations are dealt with in federal court. And then you'll notice the picture here is of the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. State courts are different in every state, and they deal with issues of law only relating to that state. So I gave the example of traffic court in Vernon Hills, or this is the Waukegan Courthouse, so they would deal with those state laws. So you're going to go ahead and click on this Google drawing here that's going to bring you to a chart of federal versus court system. So go ahead and open that up, and then you'll see 3 columns. And what I want you to do is visit this website here from uscourts.gov and just go through and see the difference of the court structures of state and federal, how they select judges, because it's very different how state select judges versus the federal level, and then the types of cases that are heard in both the federal and state governments. So you can go ahead and pause the video and complete that chart, and then when you come back, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of the difference of federal and state court. Okay, so hopefully you now understand that difference and you pause the video. If not, go back and do that chart, because you can't do this activity unless you know that difference. So the next step is to look at what cases end up in state and what cases end up in the federal court. So you are going to take a look at these scenarios, and I want you to work with a partner or someone else on this, or if you want to work by yourself, to try to understand if these cases are in fact federal cases or state cases. You're going to have to reference the chart you just completed. That's why go back if you didn't do that. You will also need to look over the Bill of Rights, if you're not familiar with that, to help you reference which amendments are being considered. And the biggest hint that I can give you with trying to figure out if these are in fact state or federal cases Is it some of the scenarios? In fact, many of the scenarios are probably both. So keep that in mind as you're looking at it. So you're going to go ahead and open up this document here. And you'll read the scenario. These are all true scenarios. In fact, some of them are pretty famous cases, as the first one is here. You're going to read the case's facts, and then you are going to determine if this is state, if it's federal, or if it's both. And you need to explain why it is. So if it's state, it's like what state law are they in fact violating? And then if it's federal, what amendment is being considered, or what constitutional issue? Because you noted from the chart you completed that in order to make it a federal court, it has to be most times referencing a constitutional issue. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking now. You can pause the video and complete these scenarios. So again, you're putting in, is it federal, is it state, is it both, and then why. So good luck with that. Okay, so now that you looked at those cases, and again, this is kind of weird because I haven't done one of these videos before, but go back if you didn't do it because you can't go forward here. So as you can see, most cases stay in the state court systems, but a lot of them do end up in the federal system after they are appealed and after a constitutional issue has been violated. But of all the cases that we see in this country, as you can tell from this slide, most remain just at the state level. And in fact, if you take that little piece here of the federal cases out, most of those federal cases are in fact bankruptcy cases, where only a few are civil or criminal cases. So now let's take a look at what the difference is between civil and criminal. So you're going to go ahead and watch this video, and after you watch this video, you'll have a better sense of civil versus criminal. So go ahead and take a look at the video. You can pause me here, click from your slides. Okay. And here I just summarized kind of what we look at, the big concepts of criminal versus civil law. So criminal law concerns with offenses against the authority of the state, violation of a law. So you committed a law, or you broke a crime, you committed a crime, breaking a law in a specific state. The punishment would be jail, prison, fine, or death penalty. What we call the burden of proof is always on the state. So the state has to prove that you're guilty. Therefore, you are innocent until proven guilty, which you've heard that before. And what's really tricky with criminal law is that you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are in fact guilty. And so that's where we get like that 98-99% certainty that you are in fact guilty. If we compare this to civil law, that's a law that determines private rights and liabilities. So you think of like contracts or disputes between private parties. The punishment for this is only reimbursement. So you saw that in the video, how you had to pay money to the person if in fact damages were found. And the burden of proof is on the plaintiff, the person bringing the case forward, to prove that more than 50% that the defendant caused injury, which it's really easy to prove 50%, right, that someone did you wrong, especially if you have like a contract dispute or another private issue. So I have these last questions that I want you to complete on your slide deck. How would you describe the difference between civil and criminal law in your own words? And then finally, why do we use O.J. Simpson as an example for criminal and civil law? So I gave you hints of Googling O.J. and Nicole Brown criminal and civil cases to find that answer. So again, this is what I want you to work on tomorrow, on Wednesday and Thursday. And you can just go ahead, keep pausing this, go back and reference it. Have this video open while you're working through the slide deck. And I miss you all, and I can't wait to see you soon. Thanks.